Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is Monica Leo from Eulenspiegel Puppet Theatre. Monica, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's I haven't had you in studio for the longest time.
No, it's been a while.
But it's so good to see you. And your puppet company, theater company, still going strong.
It's going strong.
Telling me about being busy. We'll talk about upcoming events. But what kind of drove us having a conversation today is you've published a book on the history.
That's right.
Of the troupe. So tell me how that came about.
Well, a lot of it came about because of the pandemic. We all had a little bit more time on our hands than usual. And Mary Swander decided to teach an online memoir writing class. And she's one of my best friends. I thought, sure, why not? I'll take her class. It was something I really had no intention of doing before, but then I got started and I really had fun writing it. So, worked on it for quite a while. And at some point, Mary said, I think you're ready to submit this.
And Mary, of course, is a well-known playwright who,
poet.
Yep. Poet laureate.
Yeah, and she's a wonderful, wonderful teacher. I mean, she really teaches technique, which you don't always find. She really helps you pull your sentences apart and tell you how they would communicate better.
And then you pitched it to friend of the show, Steve at Ice Cube Press.
I did.
And those of you who are watching the video can see, here's a book.
There it is.
So in the process of, obviously, you sounds like, Mary kind of mentored and talked through a lot of this with you. But was there anything that kind of changed? When you started and wrote down, kind of on a global sense that, you were writing along and kind of had a vision of how things were. But then as between Mary and Steve and as things progressed, did anything change or turn out differently than you expected?
You mean in the book itself? I was amazed that Steve didn't ask me to change a single word.
Okay.
When we had in Mary's class, we met once a month on Zoom, and then we also had a smaller group out of the class, a subgroup that we met with in between. And those meetings were always really productive. The people that were in my little subgroup, as well as Mary, were really good at, picking things up and telling me what needed to be done or what they thought needed to be done.
And you are going to have a little bit of a reading and an event coming up on Friday.
Friday
the 6th,
Friday
right?
At the Brick Street Gallery in West Liberty, which is the home of our puppet theater, of course. And it's from 5 to 7. And I'm also the featured artist, and I'll be showing some of the prints that I've done for the puppet theater over the years.
Now, this is something that people who are familiar with your puppet work may not know, that you are the artist behind the posters and the graphics and things that you have done for so many years.
And there'll be, the event is from 5 to 7, and I'll read a little bit from the chapter that specifically tells about starting the puppet theater in West Liberty at 6 o'clock. And then on the 24th of October, I've got a reading at Prairie Lights, too.
Oh, okay. That's the big time. You've got a serious book when you get to go on live from Prairie Lights.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, speaking of the book, since we have it, would you read just a little bit for us here today?
I'll read a little bit. Tell me how long you want it to be.
Okay.
And I'll read a little bit from chapter 1.
Okay. All right.
The old red pickup truck rolled through Mason City and Clear Lake, past Garner and Britt. I drove as Terry Jean studied the map, flicking cigarette ashes out the window, blonde hair flying in the breeze. It was 1978, long before cell phones or GPS. In the truck bed, under the metal topper, rode Schultz and his gang of near life-size hand and rod puppets with papier-mâché heads and protruding, soulful, movable eyes. Schultz was the head puppet. He called the shots. He wore a purple shirt, tan pants, and brown boots, and sported a red beard with a bald pate. He'd started life as a king, but he soon shed his crown and became a sort of every puppet, doling out sage advice to the other puppets and even to us, his human manipulators. He and his pals shared the space with the stage, 4 plywood panels, each designed to look like a house with a pitched roof silhouette and a window cut out. "Turn left!" The truck screeched around the corner and headed into Corwith, the site of our first ever school residency. A couple of weeks earlier, Terry Jean and I had been sitting at the round table in the kitchen nursing our coffee when we got a call from the Iowa Arts Council. Would we like to try doing some 5-day school residencies through the newly minted Artists in the Schools program? Of course we would! And here we were, driving past the bank, the cafe, the hardware store, and pulling into the elementary school parking lot. Our tiny second grade teacher sponsor was there to meet us and help us unload our pickup truck. All 5 feet of her picked up a 6-foot wooden panel and started across the parking lot. She was accosted by a strong wind and looked as if she was about to take to the sky like Mary Poppins. We all conquered the wind and set up in the gym under the basketball hoop. The kids filed in grade by grade, the kindergartners following their teacher like baby ducks, sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor in the front row. The 6th graders sat in the back. Schultz's big moment was about to start. "Schultz here? Whoa, look at all those kids. Boy, I hope they like me. But why wouldn't they? Don't worry, Schultz, just act out the story, monkeys and owls. I get to play a baker, and I have to bake a 30-layer cake with a miniature castle and a waterfall on top made out of frosting. But I feel awful because I just ate 6, count 'em, 6 chickens, and I need a nap. Well, the story goes on, and I get Till Eulenspiegel to do the work for me. Only instead of baking the cake, he bakes monkeys and owls. Don't ask me how he got that mixed up, but it was hilarious. And the kids thought so too. Whew! After the show, we headed into the classrooms one by one and started making puppets with the kids. We began to develop ideas, schedules, and teaching techniques that would stand us in good stead for the next 20 years. After that first trip to northern Iowa, the word got out, and soon we were doing an average of 2 5-day residencies a month, sometimes more, in all of Iowa's 99 counties. We stayed with families, which meant we were on all day and all evening. Our host family one week had kids who were super excited to have the guest puppeteers staying with them. It was getting to be a little much. "Hey, how about this?" I said to Terry Jean. "We tell them we need to get into school in the evening so we can work on a new show." "But we're not working on a new show, are we?" "So?" "Oh, I'll bring my Jane Fonda tape." Terry Jean figured out how the VCR in the school library worked, and before we knew it, we were doing aerobics with Jane and her crew. We loved the conviviality of this tape. It showed Jane with her class, which included her mother-in-law, Betty, a few women of assorted ages, and one man, Frank. We felt like class members, greeting the group and exercising right along with them. "Hi, Jane. Hi, Betty. Hi, Frank. Hi, Terry Jean. Hi, Monica." And away we went. 1, 2, 3, 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4 again. And again in the next town. And the next town. Sometimes we actually worked on a new show, but only after we'd worked out with Jane.
I had never imagined that the origin of the Eulenspiegel Puppet Theater would include Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda.
Now, of course, your puppeteering, that you have done, and is rooted in the way puppets have been done for centuries. But what has changed for you and your approach, or as you've done this for so many years? What's evolved?
Well, one of the things that I've found interesting over the years is I love to collaborate, and I've collaborated with a lot of different people in my life. And the thing I find really interesting about collaboration is that you end up with a product that you would not have done by yourself because everybody's stamp is on it. You end up with something that really reflects everybody that was involved in it. So my work has changed partly because of the people I've worked with over the years. I started out, Terry Jean and I worked together for 31 years, and her personality still infects the things that we do. I came from, my parents were German refugees, so I came from Grimm's fairy tales, and she came from the Three Stooges and Looney Tunes. We met in the middle, and I think that still influences my work. And then I also worked for quite a few years with Ellie Portugal, my late partner puppeteer from Mexico. And once again, that also influenced my work and still influences some of those shows. And I worked with Ron Hillis, a musician who wrote music for our shows for quite a while. And currently I'm doing most of my work with Stephanie Valez, who's my current co-puppeteer. And once again, Stephanie's ideas are different from mine, and we each have solo shows that we do individually, but then we also have the shows that we created and do together, and they reflect both of our personalities.
Well, we mentioned a couple of readings that you've got coming up regarding the book, but tell me about the upcoming season of puppet shows. Actually, the first thing in our fall, we've done our West Liberty Children's Festival, which is how we always start our season. This year was the 26th. I couldn't believe that we've been doing it for that long. Our next event is on October 21st, I think it is. We're having Squatters on Red Earth, which is a show for adults that, of course, was written by Mary Swander. Yes, and it's been staged a couple of times.
It's been staged a couple of times, and Rip Russell is the actor that performs it. It was directed by Brant Bowman, a puppeteer from Oskaloosa, who's also a head of the theater department at William Penn University.
Rip was in before the first run of the show
okay.
to talk
So
about
you know
it.
exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah,
yes.
we're going to have
what a cool
Squatters
project that is.
At the Puppetry Center in October. And I actually made the shadow puppets for it, although that was the smallest part of the job, quite honestly.
Well, the new book is called, I can't quite
It's
see
called
it.
Hand Shadow Rod, with the subtitle of The Story of Eulenspiegel Puppet Theatre.
And it's available now through Ice Cube Press and at finer bookstores, wherever as well. Or you can get a signed copy Friday in West Liberty.
And actually, it'll be at the Brick Street Gallery, too. And West Liberty's a really interesting little town. If you haven't been there, you ought to visit.
Just a tiny road trip.
Yeah,
short
little road trip. Lots of good Mexican and Laotian and Chinese restaurants, and a occasional American one in between somewhere.
And you'll be at Prairie Lights, you said, on the 24th?
On the 24th of October, yes.
And if people want to find out more about puppetry and what Eulenspiegel is all about, what's your online presence?
Puppetspuppets.com. And we also have a Facebook page for Eulenspiegel Puppet Theatre, and I also put mostly things about the puppets on my personal Facebook page.
Okay. All right. Well, Monica, thanks again
for
coming in today. Congratulations on the book. And Eulenspiegel has been such a huge part of our culture in Eastern Iowa for so many years. Having the history laid down is huge.
Well,
so thank you for going to all that work.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's going to be important.
It's a lot of fun.
I'll bet. Thanks again for being here.
Okay, thank you.
You can hear The Culture Crawl live on the radio many weekdays at 10:30, or download the podcast, watch or listen on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or using your favorite podcast player. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.